You are?
So right now, Sage and Tyra.
Oh, yeah.
Why is
They were in first, so I.
Just in
Yeah. I mean, looking at like ours is there.
Ah,
Yeah, because it's sort of a pain to, it's like, the easy to do, some people go in, so.
Okay. We're gonna get started in a minute.
but they guys were rising at seven. 69 bucks.
Hi, Amanda.
Hi, how's everybody?
How are you?
I'm a little drowsy still, but I'm okay. But I just want to say thank you for everybody coming in today. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to really getting this off the ground and everything. And I'm just glad I got a great team there to stand in when I'm not there. So I appreciate you guys.
All right, so I'm gonna kick it off. Welcome everybody to the City of Kingston Planning Board meeting. Today is July 9th, 2025. It is 5:04. My name is Suzanne Cahill. I'm the planning director for the City of Kingston. I just have a few quick announcements before we begin. If you do have a cell phone, I just please ask that you put it on silent so that it doesn't interfere with our meeting. Please be aware that the meeting is being recorded and live streamed, so be conscious of that. If you do have any outside discussions other than with the board, we just ask that you take them outside of the room. The chambers are available, or there is another conference room on the opposite side of the chambers as well. Restrooms are located through the chamber on the opposite side of the building. The men's would be to the left, women's to the right. If we have an emergency, we do ask that you please use the stairs and not the elevator. If you do need assistance, please ask and we will help you. And with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Chairman Platt to introduce the board members present and start the meeting.
Thank you, Suzanne. We will begin with introductions. And my name is Wayne Platt. We have Charles Palaco, Vince Archer, Sage Newkirk, and Kyra Grundy. You were in right now, okay? Suzanne Cahill, you've just seen her. She's the planning director. Kyla Dede is the assistant planner. We also have Assistant Corporation Counsel Matthew Jankowski. Alderwoman Sarah Pasty is the common council liaison to the planning board. And we also have Fire Chief Chris Ray here as well. Moving into item number one. So there's no public hearings tonight. So item number one is number 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue. Lot line deletion of the lands of Kingston Housing Authority. Section block and lot is 48.74-3-24 and 48.74-3-19. Secret determination, Transect Zone SD-MF, Ward 6, Kingston Housing Authority is the owner. We're also going to put in item number 2 here as well, okay? You want to include that?
Discuss everything and then at the very end, just do the resolutions on Tuesday.
Okay, but I'm going to read item number 2 as well, right? Okay, so item number 2, 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue. It's a site plan / subdivision for multifamily housing with major and minor waiver requests. Section block and lot is 48.74-3-24 and 48.74-3-19. Secret determination, Transect Zone is SD-MF. Ward 6, Kingston Housing Authority is the owner. Folks from Kingston Housing Authority, do you want to introduce? We'll go through each name by name, so we'll have it on the record. Just, I don't know where you want to start.
Okay.
Start over here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Brian Brooker, engineer for the applicant,
Okay.
Weston Sampson.
Michaela Sherman Portwright, landscape designer with Weston and Sampson for the applicant.
John Matteo, executive vice president of Malco for the Housing Authority's department.
John First of Catania Man and Ryder. We are the attorneys for the applicants.
And John Kenny Horn, traffic engineer for the applicant.
Everyone should hear it without applicants. Mark Olson with Mountain Construction Development.
Thank you, everyone.
And Geraldo.
Oh, she's on, yeah, we're always on screen there. Okay, so we've been through quite a few meetings, and a lot of back and forth and give and take and compromising. A lot of input from both sides, input from the public. And I think we are finally at the end. We do have some resolutions that we will be considering at the end of discussion today. But I do want to discuss some things that may be outstanding or can be built into a conditional.
I'm going to just start with a brief overview of the lot line deletion
Okay.
project. Kyla has the map up on the screen. As everybody understands, there are two parcels involved. One has historically been known as the Colonial Gardens project, and the other as the Penn Court, which is the senior housing project, which is where you're going to see the majority of the construction that takes place in this overall comprehensive project. That will get demolitioned. And new construction of 80 new senior housing units will be built there. But the lot line deletion effectively combines these two parcels all under one single project site. And there are improvements being made to both sites as well. So it's very simple, very straightforward. There are some easements that will need to be established. One is for the water line that will be relocated, and that's going to be also increased in size per the water department's request. And so the applicants will have to work with them to develop that final location and language for that. We will need on the final plat that comes through a signature block for the property owners to sign before the chairman signs, and also a signature block for the chairperson to sign as well. Also, we're going to need a copy of the final easement for the water service. And then are you going to be putting an easement through this parcel for access so that properties, the other, like Stuyvesant, will also be allowed to utilize this as a driving access?
So I think there's, correct me if I'm wrong, you can't enter the site through Penn Court, right? That's an exit only?
No,
Penn Court is an entrance only? Oh, entrance only. Okay. So, yeah, so I guess for access to the back lots to the other, to Van Dyke.
Right, so it'd be a simple access easement. Probably Head Start might use it.
Mhm.
I don't know, or others too.
Right.
Okay. So those are really the only outstanding things. There is a Central Hudson easement across the property that is not changing. So that would just need to be recognized as well in the final result of parcel description. And we'll be sending you all this in a letter. So that's, unless the board has any questions, it's very straightforward and we can move on to the site plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So some outstanding issues that are still out there. One of them was the stormwater plan.
Right. So one item on the site plan was for the SWIP to be submitted, reviewed. That SWIP was submitted by the applicants, and the city engineer has reviewed that. He does have some general comments, but he has submitted an opinion that we can move forward with approving it in form, as long as his requirements of his memo that he gave us yesterday are included in our final decision as conditions. And I don't see any reason why that we shouldn't follow that course of action. But he said the basic principles are all there. He just needs a few details. He's going to go through it in greater depth, and he'll be, I guess, talking to you directly, Brian. He should work through you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And his comments and the language is built into the resolution as well.
Correct. Yes, there is a Schedule A that gets attached to all of your decisions today. That Schedule A is a listing of all of the review documents that have been, or will be, are part of this decision. It goes through all the site plans, subdivisions, studies that were done, the landscape plan set, all the architectural drawings, elevations. Everything is essentially listed in there, along with agency comments that we received from the water department, the urban forester, the city engineer, our fire department, our CAC comments. All of those are listed as well in that listing that you have. So that's a comprehensive listing, and it just brings all of them into the decision. So they're all there.
Another thing that John looked over was the performance bond, and we've reached an agreement with that.
Right. As you're well aware, the board members, one requirement of site plans that have over $25,000 worth of site improvements, and obviously this is the case here, is for a performance bond to be submitted. And so we worked with the applicants to develop a detailed cost estimate that breaks it down into very refined detail. And that was, after some back and forth, that was submitted to the engineer, who has to approve it as well. He did approve it with the condition that a standard 10% contingency be added. I'm looking for it in my notes, what the final amount was, but it's also referenced in your
In
the agenda here. It's in the so basically their cost estimate was for $2,642,150. So with the 10% contingency, that amount comes to $2,906,365. So that would be the bond amount that you would require. Now, for the applicant's sake, the bond, once it's, it has to be submitted in a form that is acceptable to staff and to corporation counsel. And the bond can request periodic reductions in the bond amount as work components are completed. So one thing that we typically see is when like this project involves demolition, if the demolition is all completed, building department signs off on everything, you can request that the bond amount be reduced by the amount of demolition cost in the bond. And we can do that. We don't want to do it monthly, but we'll entertain it periodically. So that's something to just keep in the back of your head. The final bond release, however, would not happen until we get the as-built drawings and everything is completed and signed off on. So it's something to be aware of.
So historically, we've concurred with city engineers' assessment about how much should be bond amount should be.
Right.
Do we need to do a separate vote of that, or can we do that as
It's
part of the resolution?
resolution. It's part of the resolution.
All right. Recreation fee.
Correct.
And
Great. So for the recreation fee, there is a section in your notes, and you had received these earlier. So hopefully you took a few minutes to read through that. I have to find it where it is.
they check it off.
Start with policy 23 on the top. Good for the right.
What page is it?
Page numbers.
I know.
It's page after the map.
Thank you.
Okay. A little asterisk.
So, obviously the project had gotten referred to Parks and Rec Commission. They did discuss it at their June meeting. However, they did not have a quorum to make a recommendation. Recognizing that, that doesn't mean that the planning board cannot go ahead and make a determination. The Parks and Rec makes a recommendation only. You're not bound by that recommendation, so you can move forward. And what I tried to do was lay out some options for you to consider. I know there was some discussion about this last month at the planning board meeting regarding 615. You came up with a means to assess it for that project. If you want to look at it in that same way, you can. You can do a straight formula. There is right now, the council has adopted a change to how the payment in lieu of parkland fee is going to be assessed. However, that process, that local law is not yet signed into law. There is still the matter of a public hearing and the mayor's signature and then filing. So that has yet to take place. So we are still operating under the old. And we've gotten the direction from the administration that we should continue to do that for this project. One thing I will say is that because we're looking at this as, we're only looking at the increased number of units. So we are recognizing that while 80 new units are being built, 32 units were already in place. So we're removing the 32 off of the 80 number first, right off the top. So you're really looking at a gain 48 units that you're talking about how to assess the fee. Typically the first 4 are exempt, but because this is a larger project, there's already 4 units. So you can say that you're going to assess the full amount for the 48. You can take 4 off the 48 if you want to do it that way. You can consider the recreational amenities that are on the site and reduce the amount that you assess per unit. One thing I will caution is that this is a public, they have to be public amenities. So the amenities which are being constructed on this site are not necessarily open to the general public, but more for the residents of the complex. And I know that with 615 Broadway, they had the public plaza, which would be open to the general public for use, not 24/7, which is why the amount was not, why the amount was only reduced by a certain dollar value per unit. When you did the fee for Golden Hill, which is a similar type of project, they also had public park amenities, playgrounds, picnic areas, they had a trail, but they as well were not for the general public, just for the residents of that project. So the fee was not reduced per unit on that one. So I'll open it up to the board for thoughts, discussion. If you want to come up with your own formula. I did leave this open in the resolution, so whatever we come up with, we'll have to insert into the resolutions.
Well,
If I could add, sorry, just a couple of things if I can add on the right fee, if that's possible. So I think the local law that was adopted would permanently exclude any recreation fees for affordable housing. So I think that is the intent where.
That is correct, but that is not in effect yet.
I'm just so the planning board understands that that's the ultimate goal of the city council.
Right.
The other thing just to point out is that, the rec fee in this case is, it's not usually it's something you can easily pass on to residents, but in this case, you know, there's strict requirements as far as what rents we charge, to the residents. So it's not easy to pass this along to the residents. So I just want to make sure that the board understands that. I'm sure they probably already do. And these are, you know, this is a senior housing development. So we're not going to have an influx of families that are going to be heavily utilizing existing playgrounds and parks as much as a multifamily development where you have children.
I appreciate your comments. I understand them. But historically, we've under the old law, we've kind of just gone with that fee. And no matter what the demographic of people that are coming into these buildings are. So for today's purposes, I'm agreeing with the city's position that we still are under the old law. But however, I'm looking at option 1A here, which would exempt the first 4 units, even though there's units already existing from the formula. So, which would be $132,000.
So that would be taking the 48
Subtracting 4.
net gain
Yeah.
and then minusing the 4, so using 44 units times the 3,000.
Yeah.
Any other board members wanna make
See, if I could
say?
just make a comment, if that would make the discussion easier, we would certainly accept that. We understand the board's position and where we are. We had planned to make a contribution, a municipal impact fee to the city anyway. So this would be considered part of that.
Okay.
So if the board decided to impose that fee, fit it within our budget.
Great. Thank you.
When is that law proposed to be potentially changed? Is it like is it hypothetical at this point?
Yeah.
Because that
Yeah.
hasn't been by the mayor, it hasn't gone.
As about the public. So let's say that we,
Public could have an outcry, say we don't want it, the mayor doesn't sign it, it doesn't become law, so you just don't know which way it'll go. We pretty much assume which
You
way
can't
it'll
go
go.
retroactive, you can't go back.
Wow.
No.
when is the
Yeah.
amount due? When do they have to?
When they apply for the building permit.
Then we'd be looking at our September meeting, which I don't think they wanna
No.
wait.
And that doesn't mean that you're gonna have the public meeting and everything done by then either.
Because look how long it took us to get to this point.
Yeah.
With this project, with the planning board.
There's really no difference in the structure of the property and the non-public use between this and Golden Hill, correct? And we assess Golden Hill for the full amount.
Okay.
I feel that it's parallel to that particular development. They were charged, and this one should be charged equal.
And they were exempt the first 4 units of Golden Hill.
But that was brand new.
Yeah, but we were all brand new units.
So you're
That was
inclined for option 1?
Yeah, minus the 44 units being assessed.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
What was the dollar amount that you were times the 44 units you were assessing it for?
It's 132,000 versus 144,000.
3,000 a unit.
Yeah, 3,000.
3,000 a unit?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Chuck?
Any comment? Sage, thoughts?
I'm inclined to go Golden Hill too. It's all affordable housing in Golden Hill. They have just as much senior housing there. And I would assume that when new construction happened previously, they would have been exempt their first 4 units. So that has already taken place. So I would agree that it would be the 144,000.
I forgot to mention that Robert Jacobson is here now, just for the record.
Well, we're saying we're exempt, so we're at 132,000.
Oh, well, you want to exempt they've already been exempted the first 4?
Well, it wasn't in place when it was built.
Oh, it's not.
70s or 60s.
No, not when they built.
Okay, so then,
Not
yeah.
when it was originally built, no.
So then I would say exempt these 4, since we did not
Okay.
exempt 4 on the original construction.
Vince?
I agree.
So, very cool. So what option?
I suggested.
You're 1A?
1.
44 units at 3,000.
Chuck, what are you? What option are you looking at? 1 or 1A?
Oh, no. 44 units is 44 units. 1A. What do you propose?
Vince?
When
Tyra?
1A.
All right, so it looks like it's 1A. What other,
We do need to talk briefly, if you want to talk any more about the waivers, and then also the CAC communication.
we have discussed the waivers and asked at length, and we had a, I don't know if we want to consider a straw poll, but I think
That's covered.
there was pretty lengthy discussion by all board members on how they thought about that. So I think that in itself can be voted on in the resolution. Do you agree with that? Okay. And that language is in the resolution as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so the last remaining real item would be the CAC communication. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at that? A large portion of that dealt with the some landscaping questions. Mikhail, I don't know if you want to address any of that. I know I had forwarded, well, what got forwarded by John to you, so.
Yeah, I can address those comments. So one of the comments related to the landscape scope of work was to do with non-native and cultivar species being proposed. And we have been working with the city urban forester to make substitutions for some of these plant species to native and stray species. And while we do agree with the city and the CAC's stance on native and stray species plant material, we do sometimes propose non-native, non-invasive or cultivar species that have specific traits like increased performance in urban areas, specific size and form character, as well as
This is.
specific kind of ornamental needs in terms of flowering times. So in the CAC communication, they specifically called out the Hakanoklo, which is the Japanese forest grass, and the Carl Forester grass. So in the case of the Carl Forester, has a really upright form, and it is not as spreading as other native grass species. So that was our reasoning for selecting that grass. And then the Hakanokloa is really an outperformer in urban areas, and it also thrives in shade. So the area that we're proposing in the plan is an area that's going to receive more shade because of its position within the smaller courtyards at Colonial Gardens. But all that being said, we did get comments from the urban forester, and he sent us some substitutions. So if it is the desire of the board, we can absolutely look through those.
So I did, in the language of the resolution, I did put in a statement that said the urban forester shall be coordinated with all removals and new plantings as the project progresses for compliance with the FBC form-based code requirements. The board further recognizes the email of July 8th, 2025 regarding plantings in response to the CAC comment. So it's kind of covered in there. So as they progress their landscaping, as the project moves forward, they'll work directly with the forester on those.
So
Both of the ultimate, I mean, is that something that we can also leave on staff level? So if there's an issue.
Yes,
staff
yes,
can make a
that's
decision?
staff, you
Because
staff.
I don't want one wants one, I mean, ultimately the planning board, if it's an issue, I don't want this to hold the project because we're fighting over grass.
We can,
because
he works under me, the forester works under my department.
urban forester and
Okay.
CAC are advisory as of right now, so they're working together with the applicants.
So that's on advisory, so any modification will really be left at staff level.
Correct.
So I'd be more comfortable with that
Yeah.
resolution at staff level,
Okay.
since it works for you.
So how would you change,
I mean, just
the
the
urban
way-
forester under planning staff?
You
Okay,
left at staff level. Or you normally do your resolutions, but. Okay,
all right,
therefore they can coordinate for you with issues.
yeah,
Thank you for working with, do you have additional information?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, there were some additional landscape
Okay.
comments, that I'll just go through quickly, both were regarding tree removals, both at the Penn Court and Colonial Garden side. So the first one was a mulberry tree. It's tree number 222 on the Penn Court side between the Penn Court building and Flatbush Ave. It is an invasive species, but due to its location on that steep slope, it is working to hold back that slope. And as well, it is closely located very closely to another tree, which is a hackberry. So removal of the mulberry and its stem would require us to take down another tree. So we're in that area. There's a stand of trees that really does good screening of the property at that corner. So it was our kind of our mission to preserve as many mature trees in that area as possible.
And I believe the urban forester concurred with that.
Yes, with the steep slope comment.
Right.
Yeah, and there was additional stand of trees on the Colonial Garden side. It's trees 117 through 122 slated for removal. It's a group of pin oaks. And they are slated for removal because they're in direct conflict with proposed work, being the roadway alignment for Penn Court, the retaining wall, and some site grading. So the trees there are either in direct conflict with their location, or construction activities would proceed like the trees would be too disturbed to survive.
That's all in concur.
Huh?
That's all in concur.
Yes, yes. So the other items within the CAC comments, dealt with the, Ulster County Planning Board comments, recognizing those, which we also incorporated into the resolution that we were concurring with those. We reviewed them at a prior meeting. And then one also last item had to deal with the refuse and recycles. I don't know what if.
Yeah, John, or I'm sure you want to address that. Could you explain what the system is?
Yeah, so the first floor of the building will have a compaction room where the trash food will come down with the garbage. And each floor will have a room with bins in it for recycling.
Okay, so I think that's what they were not clear on. They thought that all the trash was gonna go down and be collected, so effectively, when they wanted separation of recycling, the CAC, that was their comment, that they didn't want to see everything go into just the garbage chute and not effectively be recycled and waste stream not managed correctly, so.
So are you saying you're gonna have recycling on each floor in like a garbage room?
Yeah.
And then what are they, totes, where then you have to wheel the totes down through the elevators? Or
They're in bins, and however the management.
So those, obviously kept clean, sanitary,
There's a trash chute, which.
But the trash chute was,
Trash food is going to.
recyclables are, correct, but a lot of people don't clean recyclables. So recyclables tend to be dirty, sticky, attract vermin.
It's a management issue. It is. We've had this at other buildings. It's a matter of keeping the property maintained properly with the super and cleaning. But we're aware of that. You're correct.
That pretty much takes care of that. I don't know if board members have any other questions. In the staff notes, I put in the applicant did a very thorough job of responding to all of the previous board comments that were sent. They went through each one and provided responses, which I incorporated into your notes. I don't know if you have any other questions. I thought they responded very good. I had no questions, no further issues. So,
No questions from the board? Further? All right, so this was,
Start with the lot line.
yeah, or seeker.
seeker has the reverse.
Um,
So you'll recall, this is an unlisted action. But did this as a coordinated review because of the multiple agencies that are involved. We received comments from any other outside agencies in our circulation process. Nothing came at our public hearing as well that we held. So there is a prepared, I think in your,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
okay, I think in your package, you've got the seeker form. Want to review it? Any questions? We have the draft resolution.
I'm good to go. Everybody's good to go?
Yeah, motion.
Okay. Can I read it first and then we'll get through the motions first?
Yeah, you read it.
Yeah. Okay, we have a resolution of the City of Kingston Planning Board issuing a negative declaration of environmental significance for the site plan and lot line deletion of number 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue, Kingston, New York, 12401. Section block and lot 48.74-3-24 and 48.74-3-19. Whereas the Planning Board of the City of Kingston Board, located in Ulster County, New York, is considering an application for site plan approval from the Kingston Housing Authority, the applicant, for demolition of two existing senior housing buildings containing 32 units off of Penn Court and construction of a new 80-unit senior housing building, along with associated supporting site improvements throughout the Colonial Gardens complex and Penn Court, which is hereinafter referred to as the action. And whereas the action also includes a lot line deletion to combine the parcels into one as well, and 5 waiver requests from the city form-based code, and whereas the action is located in the SD-MF transect zone, it has a 25% lot coverage and maximum building height of 2.5 stories associated with it. And whereas the site is currently multifamily and the action will add 48 more senior housing units along with associated infrastructure improvements and upgrades to the overall site amenities of the larger site. And whereas the action is an unlisted action under 6 NYCRR 617.5, and whereas the applicant and planning staff identified several involved agencies and determined that a coordinated review was in the best interest of the project and requested a Part 1 of full environmental assessment form, the FEAF, be submitted for review. And whereas the Kingston Planning Board circulated a request for determination of lead agency and on January 21, 2025, declared lead agency status after appropriate circulation. You see where there's a D supposed to be in the lead. This is lead agency.
Oh,
Third paragraph. Whereas planning staff has completed a draft parts 2 and 3 for the planning board consideration and it has been reviewed. And whereas in addition to the FEAF parts 1, 2, and 3, the board reviewed and considered all documents listed on attached Schedule A, dated July 9, 2025, with particular attention to the following: site plan application and full plan set, lot line revision application and plat, project narrative and description of action, architectural elevations and visual renderings along with mood boards schematics, landscaping and lighting plans, erosion and sediment control plans, stormwater pollution prevention plan, the SWIP, drainage analysis, Ulster County Planning Board required application, parking supply and demand reduction strategy, analysis, construction staging and logistic plans, capacity to serve letter from engineering, and waiver requests and documentation. Whereas the board conducted a public hearing on April 21, 2025 for the lot line deletion, site plan, and major and minor waivers, and receiving no public comment, written or oral, the board closed the hearing on the same date. And whereas the board and representatives of various agencies participated in site visits to the project location in November 2024. And whereas the board has considered the seeker full environmental assessment form, parts 1, 2, and 3, and other materials submitted by the applicant in support of the proposed action, along with written comments of other municipal agencies pertaining to the review and evaluation of the proposed action. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the City of Kingston, New York as follows. Section 1, in accordance with 6 NYCRR Part 617, that the proposed unlisted action as described herein will not have a significant adverse effect on the environment, and further determines that preparation of the environmental impact statement will not be required. Section 2, the Planning Board has relied upon the facts and information contained in its record file regarding the proposed unlisted action, as well as discussions with and mitigation measures imposed in making the above secret determination of non-significance, which is a negative declaration. Section 3, a copy of this resolution and attached secret notice of determination of non-significance in negative declaration shall be maintained by the planning board and filed with the City of Kingston clerk, as well as to the applicant owner and all identified involved and interested agencies. Section 4, that this resolution shall take effect immediately. At this time, I'll make a motion that we adopt this resolution by the second. Second by Chuck Palaco. Wayne Platt is a yes. Charles Palaco.
Yes.
Robert Jacobson.
Yes.
Vince Archer.
Yes.
Hold on. Sage was first in this meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, Sage Newkirk.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's fine. Okay, this is adopted. All right. Let's start on the next one. Yeah. Okay, resolution of the City of Kingston Planning Board approving the lot line deletion between number 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue, Kingston, New York, 12401. Section block and lot 48.74-3-24 and 48.74-3-19. Whereas the Kingston Housing Authority, the applicant, submitted applications, plans, and other supporting documentation to the City of Kingston Planning Board, which is the board, for a lot line deletion between two parcels in association with site plan approval for demolition of two existing senior housing buildings known as Penn Court and construction of a new 80-unit senior housing building and various site improvements to Colonial Gardens and Penn Court, which is the action. And whereas the action is located at 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue, section block and lot 48.74-3-24 and 48.74-3-19. And whereas the action includes 5 waiver requests for waivers to deviate from strict adherence to the form-based code. And whereas the board considered a public hearing on April 21, 2025 for both the lot line deletion and the site plan with major and minor waivers, and receiving no public comment, written nor oral, the board closed the hearing on the same date. And whereas all documentation outlined in attachment A, review document listing dated July 9, 2025, and comments are made part of this review in their full form. And whereas the board and representatives of various agencies participated in site visits to the project location in November 2024. And whereas the board determined the action to be unlisted under seeker pursuant to 6 NYC-RR Part 617. However, the project, which includes a lot line deletion, demolition, and the site plan for new construction and associated site improvements, involves review by a number of agencies. So at the request of the applicant, the planning board underwent a coordinated review, declaring lead agency status on January 21, 2025, and issued a negative declaration of environmental significance on July 9, 2025. And now therefore be it resolved by the City of Kingston Planning Board as follows. Section 1, after thorough review of the documentation and associated agency comment, board votes to approve the lot line deletion. Section 2, approval shall include all conditions as follows. A, written description of the new resultant parcel submitted for staff review, which includes all utility easements and descriptions. B, submission of a minimum of 5 paper copies and 1 Mylar copy of final plat with signature box signed by the property owners and separate signature box for the board chair's signature. and filing with the county clerk's office. The board chairman shall only sign after all other documentation is submitted and ready for filing. C, cross easements for access be provided as note on final plat. D, filing of a new deed for the new parcel along with the water line easement and map. Section 3, approval of the board does not eliminate the need to obtain appropriate permits and approvals from other boards, commissions, departments, and relevant agencies. Section 4, that this resolution shall take effect immediately. So I will make a motion that we adopt this resolution. I have a second on that. Second by Vince Archer. Wade Platt is a yes. Charles Palacco.
Yes.
Robert Jacobson.
Yes.
Vince Archer.
Yes.
Sage Newkirk.
Yes.
That is adopted. You're up on the next one.
In the West.
Other paper.
The next one?
Yes.
Right. Resolution of the City of Kingston Planning Board approving the site plan for demolition of 2 buildings, construction of an 80-unit senior housing building, along with associated improvements throughout the complex, and consideration for various waivers from the city form-based code at number 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue, Kingston, New York, 12401. SBL 48.74, Block 3, Lot 24, Section 48.74, Block 3, Lot 19. Whereas Kingston Housing Authority applicant submitted applications, plans, and other supporting documentation to the City of Kingston Planning Board, the board, for demolition of 2 existing senior housing buildings known as Penn Court and the construction of a new 80-unit senior housing building and various site improvements to Colonial Gardens and Penn Court at the action. And whereas the action is located at 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue, SBL 48.74, Block 3, Lot 24, Section 48.74, Block 3, Lot 19 in the City of Kingston. And whereas the board determined the action to be unlisted under secret pursuant to 6 NYCRR Part 617, the application underwent coordinated review, and the planning board acted as lead agency issuing a negative declaration of environmental significance on July 9th, 2025. And whereas the action includes a lot line deletion to combine the parcels of 206 and 208 Flatbush Avenue, which was granted conditional approval by resolution of the planning board on July 9th, 2025. And whereas the action contained 5 waiver requests to deviate from strict adherence to the form-based code. And whereas the applicant submitted a site plan application with initial review taking place at the November 18th, 2024 planning board meetings and subsequent meetings following to review additional materials submitted. And whereas the board conducted a public hearing on May 1st, 2025 for both the lot line deletion and the site plan with major and minor waivers, and receiving no public comment, written or oral, the board closed the hearing on the same date. And whereas the board has reviewed and considered comments from the city engineer, building safety division, city fire chief, Kingston Water Department, urban forester, Kingston Conservation Advisory Council, and Ulster County Planning Board. And whereas all documentation outlined in attachment A, review document listing dated July 9, 2025, and comments are made part of this review in their full form. And whereas the board and representatives of various agencies participated in site visits to the project location in November 2024, and whereas all comments, supporting documentation, plans, relevant studies, and meeting documents are posted on the City of Kingston website for access by the public. And whereas the project materials were provided to the City of Kingston Parks and Recreation Commission, but no recommendation with regard to payment of the apartment was provided to the planning board due to a lack of quorum at the June 2025 meeting. And whereas the action was referred to the Ulster County Planning Board and recommendation was returned on referral number 2025-57 dated May 7th, 2025, And whereas the action only increased housing for seniors and thereafter the board did not require a referral to the school district for impact evaluation. Now therefore be it resolved by the City of Kingston Planning Board as follows. Section 1. After thorough review of all documentation and associated agency comments, the board votes to approve the site plan to construct an 80-unit senior housing building with associated site improvements and supporting infrastructure within the larger complex parcel established by a lot line deletion. The conditions have been identified in the following statements. Section 2. Approval shall include all conditions as follows. Submission of the required performance bond and a form satisfactory to the planning staff and corporation council in the amount of $2,906,365 before any permits are issued for work. Periodic reductions to the fund committed with documentation of work completed and accepted by the city. Final release of the performance bond shall only be after receipt of certified as-built site plans and engineering sign-off. All improvements within any public right-of-way shall 1. Final sign-off permits issued by the Department of Public Works. 2. Has final sign-offs of the design by the city engineer. Next, a SWIP dated June 18th, 2025 was reviewed and conditionally approved by the city engineer. Full compliance with the contents of the SWIP and final approval of the SWIP by the city engineer as per the email of July 8th, 2025 is required prior to any permits being issued for the grant. Conformance with the fire protection measures as detailed in email dated 4/22/25 and later dated June 16th, 2025 from Chief Ray, City of Kingston Fire Department. Next, the board recognizes that Kingston Water Department communication of June 11th, 2025. Final sign off from the Kingston Water Department is required. The applicant will work directly with the Kingston Water Department on final layout, services, and provisions for a new minimum 20-inch wide water easement or 20-foot wide water easement through the property. Said easement to be filed in the Ulster County Clerk's Office. Urban forester shall be coordinated with all removals and new plantings as the project progresses. The compliance with the FEC requirements. The board further recognizes the email of July 8th, 2025 regarding plantings in response to the CAC comment.
Did you want to add under planning staff there after urban forester?
Yes.
That's what we talked
The
about.
urban forester shall be coordinated with planning staff.
Yep.
Next, we have the following board policies are hereby incorporated. Policy 1A. You want me to? You want me to spell out what you just the policy numbers or?
Just give me the
Numbers,
numbers.
the policies are hereby incorporated as policy 1A, 2A, 3A, 3B, 4A, 6, 8A, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13A, 14, 14A, 17, 17A, 18, 20, 22, 23, 24, 25. Refuse and recycling collection will be by private hauler and improvements made to existing collection areas as shown on plans will be confirmed for compliance with the FBC or modified to confirm. The senior housing shall be served independently using trash chutes and compactors at the location. The comment is made by the Kingston CAC is recognized and to be followed by the applicant on providing for refuse, recycling, storage, and collection. Conformance with all plans, documents, and specifications is defined by attachment A, review documents dated July 9th, 2025, unless otherwise noted herein. Location of all exterior HVAC elements will be provided on drawings and will be screened and located in conformance with the FTC section 405.14, subsection I, subsection 5. As-built drawings will be certified and provided to the planning office for all newly constructed and installed planned elements prior to any final bond release and final certificate of occupancy. Submit copies of filed easements, agreements, proof of filings as required prior to issuance of any building permits. A lot line deletions shall be filed at the Ulster County Clerk's Office and the proof of filing provided to the city prior to the issuance of any permits. Section 4. The board finds that the anticipated increase in population as defined by creating 80 senior residential units, 48 more than the current number, that cause the need for continued upkeep and improvements to park facilities which provide recreational opportunities to residents. Recognizing that the project does offer private open spaces and playground equipment for residents of Colonial Gardens and Penn Court, the board also acknowledges that the increase in population of all demographics are likely to result in an increased use of nearby parks and facilities for programs and passive and active recreation. These increases require strategic planning to meet the needs of our residents and provide high quality of life experiences for all. each impact, small or large, must be taken into consideration so we can best prepare for the future of our community spaces and offerings. The Recreation Trust Fund is utilized to help supply new playgrounds, pavilions, and amenities to contribute back to the city's parks and programs and allow for the department to continue to grow in its recreational opportunities to meet the growing community needs. The board hereby directs that the applicant to remit a payment in lieu of parkland to be placed into the Recreation Trust Fund. The amount to be determined as follows, noting that no permit shall be issued until such fee is submitted to the city of Kingston. And that was 44 units at $3,000 per unit, which equals a total of $132,000. Section 5. The board concurs with the recommendations of the Ulster County Planning Board, which includes sustainability, implementing new green infrastructure techniques, examining how the building meets the energy stretch code, encouraging alternative energy sources, and accommodating electric vehicle charging stations. Section 6, the board has found that parking supply and demand reduction strategy plans submitted by the applicant acceptable to demonstrate that sufficient services are accommodated by on-site improvements and with services that will be available to residents through the public transit and shared parking on site. Section 7, the board has reviewed and accepted the updated January 2025 traffic study. Section 8, the board finds the following with respect to waivers from the FBC. 1. Building width larger than 150 feet. Section 405-12, subsection H, subsection 2. Minor waiver. A. Requirements. Section 405, subsection 12, subsection H, subsection 2. Building wider longer than 150 feet meets the requirements of 405, subsection 14C, subsection 4. Shall be varied with a change of architectural expression. B. Proposed waiver. A. A 325.4 foot wide building made up of 3 sections, with each section aligned not parallel with one another. The 2 widest sections are 150 and 135 feet with a recent that's 45 per section in between. Each wide section is further broken down and articulated into a series of full building height and vertical elements of different colors and textures. C. Justification for waiver. The 2 existing buildings to be demolished are 180 feet and 230 feet wide. Existing adjacent Colonial Gardens buildings to remain have sections ranging from 160 and 230 feet wide. The facade of the new building will be varied with a change of architectural expression as required for the wide buildings. Landscaping will further articulate and break up the massing of the building and help mitigate its wide appearance. A single building is less expensive to construct as multiple buildings would require the duplication of required elevators, access stairs, and other costly safety and environmental equipment. Given the above, the minor waiver for a wide building meets the intent of the SDMF zoning district by allowing applicants to provide for more multifamily, low-income, affordable housing in the city. Finding. Although this is a minor waiver, the planning administrator has elevated it to be considered alongside the planning board's other reviews of lot line deletion, site plan, and additional major waiver requests to streamline the review. With the review of the developed visual studies provided and the site visit to understanding the surrounding neighborhood and complex context, the proposed new building is compatible with and fits within the existing context. The board recognizes the architectural articulations and the added landscaping around the building perimeter and site to break up the massing of the building. Given the above, the minor waiver for a wide building meets the intent of the SDMF zoning district and will further provide more multifamily, low-income, affordable housing in the city. Minor waiver is granted. 2. Building height more than 2.5 stories. Section 405, subsection 11M. And figure 405.3, subsection C. Major waiver. A. Requirements. Section 405-11, subsection M, and figure 405.3, subsection C require 2.5 stories maximum. B. Proposed waiver. To allow 4 stories, which is an additional 1.5 stories. C. Justification. The additional 1.5 stories will allow for 48 more senior affordable units than the 2.5 story structure. This is a significant number of additional units and a benefit for the city, which directly addresses its current housing shortage crisis. For the FBC, other districts offer bonus height incentives for affordable housing units. The SDMF MF district should benefit from similar incentives as well. From the public road passing the site, the building will appear lower than 4 stories. Along the eastern boundary of the new building site is Flatbush Avenue sloping downhill from east to west. The avenue's roadway is at a substantially higher elevation than the lower site for the new building. The building is set back from the road as required. At its highest point, as the road passes the site, it will be approximately 30 feet above the building's finished ground floor elevation. At the road's downhill end of passing it will be approximately 10 feet above. Taller buildings are more energy efficient and cause less ground disturbance and impervious coverage than the same number of units in a lower structure or number of structures. The board considered various visual simulations which were undertaken and used surrounding grades and buildings as well. Provide a full-scale simulation of how the project would appear from various angles and determine if there would be any significant changes that would negatively impact on the environment. Heights were shown in different concept schemes to allow for a more objective determination of heights and design of the building. Given all the above, the slightly taller building still meets the intent of the city zoning code and the SDMF district, and the improved architectural design and landscaping of the proposed new building with updated grounds will result in the attractive contribution to the area. Major waivers granted. 3. Parking requirements, section 405, subsection 16C1, major waiver. A, requirement 405-16, subsection C1, at least 1 off-street parking space per dwelling unit, but no more than 3 per unit. Proposed waiver to allow for 151 off-street parking spaces when 180 are required, since there will be a total of 180 units. C, justification for waiver. The number of parking spaces proposed by the applicant believe it is consistent with and compatible to what they have been provided at other senior and affordable housing developments they manage and have developed. For the city zoning code, the city should be right-sizing parking requirements so that they are less burdensome, particularly when dealing with additional affordable units, 80 of which are for seniors. Finding. In addition to the justification as outlined here, the applicant has provided a parking supply and demand reduction study, which the board has considered. Given the nature of the expansion for senior housing and the availability of on-site shared parking under the same ownership, the board recognizes the project allows for and encourages multimodal transportation uses. Similar projects managed by the owner as referenced of need will produce affordable housing units and is consistent with the city's zoning code, which also promotes more flexible parking requirements, and specifically within SDMF zone, major waiver is granted. 4. Lot coverage more than 25%. Section 405, subsection 11, subsection L. That's an L, right?
Yes.
L. And figure 405.3, subsection C, major waiver. A. Requirements, section 405-11, subsection 11, and figure 405.3C require 25% maximum. The existing 142,824 square feet, 43%. C, proposed waiver, 159,279 square feet, or 48.3%, when only 25% is permitted, but actually only allowing 5.3% more than currently exists. D, justification. Much of the impervious coverage is due to the existing walkways on the portion of the site that are not being demolished and replaced. Stormwater infrastructure will be updated to mitigate all increased runoff. Allowing for greater coverage will result in additional senior affordable housing units within the project, which will also alleviate some of the city's housing shortage. The additional affordable housing units are consistent with the city's zoning code and the SDMF zone. In addition, the new building, landscaping, and stormwater control measures will result in a much improved and attractive neighborhood area. Finding. The board finds that the proposed lot coverage is lessened by combining the property into a single site, but still require a waiver. It is determined that the new development will be in character with the look and feel of the community context of the area. Layout and landscaping along and throughout the project complex will aid in softening the increase of lot coverage and promote a livable urban environment. The board further recognizes that other site amenities being upgraded and or expanded include playgrounds, outdoor picnic areas, and community space. These other upgrades will serve to promote intergenerational experiences Adding landscaping will serve to promote more efficient use of exterior spaces as well as providing environmental benefits. Major waivers granted. 5. Steep slopes, section 405-14, subsection K3, major waiver. Requirement, section 405-14, subsection K, subsection 3, states that the ground which has an incline of 25% or more shall be preserved and developed on ground which is at an incline of 10 to 25% will require major waiver. Proposed waivers. Some development on ground with slopes between 10% to 25% is required. Waiver justification. Due to the existing site's current constraints, the applicants have no choice but to preserve some steep slope areas in order to construct and replace building, improve Penn Court and off-street parking. Proper erosion control measures both during construction and after construction will be implemented to minimize any potential impacts. Retaining walls, structures, and BMP for stormwater collection and distribution will follow under an approved SWIP. Vegetation removed for the new construction is being replaced with native plantings and an increased amount to compensate for lost assets. Finding. The board finds that the proposed construction takes into consideration steep slopes and grades and uses those to the best advantage in providing new housing and associated improvements to support the project. Final SWIP with erosion control practices defined improved water storm collection and mitigation of excess runoff, utilizing previous favors, native plantings for sustainability and other BMPs in landscaping will strengthen and support new grades. Major waivers granted. Section 9. Approval of the board does not eliminate the need for obtaining the appropriate permits and approvals from other boards, commissions, departments, and relevant agencies. Section 10, this approval shall be valid for 1 year for the purpose of obtaining a building permit. Section 11, this resolution shall take effect immediately. I'll make the motion that we approve.
There a second on that? Second by Sage Newkirk. All in favor? Wait, well, I should go down person by person. Wayne Platt is a yes. Charles Palaco.
Yes.
Robert Jacobson.
Yes.
Vince Archer.
Yes.
Sage Newkirk.
Yes.
That is adopted.
Hey, they have one more, please. Doesn't you guys are done?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good luck with that progress.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just comment, it's a long night. You guys have been great throughout this whole process.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's what I want to say too. My first job, I got out of graduate school, was city planner at the city of Newark, planning commission, planning board. And for 55 years since then, I've been appearing before planning boards all around the state. Mr. Chairman, I've never been before a board that has been more thorough, more intelligent in its review, more careful in what it's doing, more diligent in trying to balance the applicant's needs with the needs of protecting the community. And you and the board members should be commended for that. I had the opportunity to say that to the mayor recently, and he thought about it for a minute. With a hand on my shoulder, he looked me in the eyes and said, "John, I didn't know you were that old." But I am. And after I thought about it, he probably said some nice things about the board as well. I wasn't paying attention. But anyway, thank you all. I know Sue is not a national treasure yet, but she certainly is a Kingston treasure.
Well, John, thank you so much for your time.
Yes.
I
Thank you for your due
have large
diligence.
projects like this come through. I always worry about it. It's going to be a protracted application process. And I'm satisfied that this was adequate. So that the back and forth and how you listen to the board, we listen to you and the public. I really appreciate, that you've got the dream team here. And every one of you is to be commended for the
Everybody
job.
did a great job, and what this is going to result in is that 238 very low-income households are going to have their lives changed over a period of time, and you guys played a large part in it. So thank you.
And I appreciate how you manage the displaced residents
Yeah.
and how you found them a place to stay.
Yeah. That's
As you
critical.
know, that is,
Corral's the boss. We just do what
all
you
right,
say.
well, that's great.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you.
summer.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
seeing you guys all the time.
Yes, and the signature. Where? On this one.
They were giving away. Oh, they doing.
Wayne found this, some of this.
We found it. All right.
So then the last thing we just want to quickly tonight, I know Kyle was sent out earlier today. Some of you have already reviewed and responded. There were, 5, I believe, separate letters of support for a variety of grants that are going in by the city of Kingston. And, just wanted the board to authorize Wayne to execute those, on behalf of the
I
board.
just see this. So the one that's in the scan. You're gonna put that on the motion in a second.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
This way you find, but approval. All those, Rain,
No, well, yeah, I sent that and you said we gotta wait for tonight anyway, so I
I
know
sent mine
a
yesterday,
number of you
so-
also weighed in on that, so it seems to be approved by the board. So all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried.
Sign.
the
Motion to adjourn.
Second on that, Vince Archer to adjourn, all in favor? Aye, opposed, carried. You got 2 minutes.
friends of Santa Fe waiting for my.
Vince, you have 2 minutes of free time right now, so, you know, yeah. Thank you.
You didn't want to read that.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, of course, Sue has to use every freaking word that's this long.
Steve,